What? Why is my seat in the restroom? This has to be some kind of joke, right? At the inaugural party for the new company's CEO, I discovered this shocking situation. Kimberly, my boss who constantly mocks me for only having a middle school education, laughed with amusement at my reaction. A middle school graduate like you? Perfect for having your meal in the restroom. It's all the rage now, right? Restroom meals. They're good enough for you. Fuming at her words, I declared that I was going home. And not only me, but every other employee present also decided to leave, leaving Kimberly all alone in the empty venue. After that, Kimberly. My name is Keith Underhill, 40 years old. I'm an average office worker at Kendall & Company, a small company in Tokyo. If I may say so myself, I'm neither outstanding nor lacking. Just somewhere in between. Good morning. Good morning, Keith. Greeting the folks in the sales department, I settled at my desk and started prepping for the day's work. I checked my appointments and calls and scheduled my day. At 40, it wouldn't be unusual for me to have a managerial title, but here I am, a regular employee. My sales performance isn't bad, but I think my lack of educational background has something to do with not being promoted. I'm what you might call an unusual case, a middle school graduate in this day and age. Keith, are you really a middle school grad? That's kinda surprising. Why didn't you go to high school? Hey, come on. That's personal stuff. Can't you imagine he had his reasons? Yeah, I get that, but aren't you curious? Don't you want to ask when you're curious about something? Man, saying I'm curious like that. It sounds like a kid. Tom, one of my colleagues, sighed at Scott, the junior who was so openly curious. These two are quite a pair, just watching them interact is fun. Well, yeah, it's only natural to wonder. You don't see many people with just a middle school education. It's fine, I don't mind sharing. Want to hear why I didn't go to high school? I explained to Scott why I started working right after middle school. I've told this several times before, so now I can keep it pretty concise. I actually wanted to go to high school, but I have 5 younger siblings. There were 6 of us all together. Wow! That's a lot of siblings. Big family. I'm one of 3, the middle child, and I thought that was a lot, but 6. Yeah, it's a lot, even back then. But then, in my second year of middle school, my dad fell seriously ill. He fought hard. But by the summer of my 3rd year, he passed away. So my mom had to raise 6 kids on her own. And as you can imagine, that was tough. Yeah, no kidding. Your mom must have been amazing. I'm an only child, so I can't even picture it. My mother, knowing she had 6 mouths to feed, started working right after my father's funeral, saying there was no time to grieve. But with 6 kids, even just the grocery bills were overwhelming. Even as a kid, I understood how hard it was to manage on one income. That's why I started working. My mom felt guilty she couldn't send me to high school, and she cried over it, but as the eldest, I wanted to help my siblings. They're my family, and I wanted them to have a shot at a good education. So the money you earned helped your younger siblings stay in school? Exactly. All 5 graduated from high school and went on to follow their own paths, whether it was trade school, jobs, community college, or university. It made me happiest to see them each pursue what they wanted. Scott looked moved by my story. Keith, that's incredible. I had no idea. I really respect you for that. With eyes shining, Scott looked at me in admiration. I often hear about a look of respect, and I think this is exactly what they're talking about when I see Scott's eyes right now. Thank you, Scott. But I just did what I could for my family. Now, I'm just grateful to work hard here with everyone. Me too. I'm really glad to work with someone who's lived such a cool life like you. Thanks. Well, looks like our break's almost over. Let's work hard this afternoon. Right. Oh, excuse me, I'll head out a bit early. I've got something I need to finish up. As Scott hurriedly disappeared, muttering about running out of time, Tom let out a sigh. He's a good guy, but he tends to say whatever pops into his head as soon as he's curious about something. It's a little concerning. Tom, Scott's mentor, is older but joined the company at the same time as me, and we've known each other for a long time. Even though I only finished middle school, he never looked down on me and has always been a good-natured colleague and friend. I chuckled, patting Tom on the shoulder. Yes, but he means well. It'll take time, but he'll learn. Just gotta guide him a bit. You think so? Thanks, man. Well, let's get back to work. Let's do our best this afternoon. For sure. Gotta keep from nodding off. With that, we wrapped up our lunch break and prepared for the rest of the workday. My co-workers, juniors, and most of my supervisors are basically friendly and respectful. The key point here is basically, as there's one person who still sticks in my mind. That person is Kimberly, the female department head who constantly mocks me. Kimberly is a graduate of a prestigious university and carries herself like an elite, always looking for a chance to criticize my education. Keith, I noticed a typo in one of your reports. Can you read? Do you understand what you're writing? Or is this because of your education? These mistakes are a problem. I'm sorry, I'll correct it right away. I responded calmly, but I couldn't help sighing inwardly. Sure, it's my fault for making a mistake. No argument there. But a single typo? For one tiny error, Kimberly acts like she's won a prize, eagerly putting me down. And she seems to enjoy it. Do you, a middle school graduate, ever feel the difference in our levels when working with someone like me? Being open about my education level brings out all kinds of opinions from people. I understand that there are many ways of thinking in the world, and everyone has their own opinions. As for me, maybe it was different when I was younger, but at this age, I don't get hurt by it anymore. It's just baffling to see someone who can only view others based on academic credentials. All set. I'm sorry again for the mistake. I corrected the document, printed it out, and handed it to Kimberly. Really, don't waste my time with this. Unlike you, I have a busy schedule. With a dismissive "get your work done properly," she clicked her heels out of the room. I took a deep breath, letting go of the tension. Just then, Tom appeared and gave me a supportive pat on the shoulder. Nice job holding it together. If she's so busy, why bother with a single typo? Then Scott showed up, looking a bit pouty. He stared at the door Kimberly had just exited, not looking too pleased. Seriously. Kimberly's too much. She's always picking out people's mistakes just to criticize. I don't think anyone here actually likes her. Well, I know the typo's on me, and I figure she's a talented person to be in her position, but yeah, her attitude toward people could use some work. And it's not just me. Anyway, back to work. Let's do it. Oh, here, Keith, take this. It's chocolate. Oh, thanks. I'll eat it and get back on track. What? Hey, Scott, can I get some too? Tom, you don't have anything to be upset about, so no. Ah, come on. Don't be stingy. I laughed out loud at their playful exchange. Though Kimberly's attitude was always harsh, I was grateful for the kindness of others around me. Working here was fun and fulfilling, but then... A company-wide meeting? That's rare. I wonder what's up. Are these common around here? Almost never. This'll be like the second one since I joined. An urgent all-hands meeting was suddenly announced through a company-wide email. The employees, like myself, gathered with questions on their minds, and a low hum of conversation filled the room. As soon as Mr. Kendall, the CEO, entered and stood before everyone, the murmurs quieted instantly. Mr. Kendall began to speak with a calm smile. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Today, I have an important announcement, which is why I called you all here." Attention spread through the employees, who focused their attention on him. With everyone's eyes on him, Mr. Kendall took a deep breath and continued. "I've led this company for many years, but I decided to retire at the end of this quarter and welcome a new CEO." A murmur of surprise filled the room. His announcement came as a shock. He'd only recently turned 60, after all. Some worried there might be health issues behind his decision. "My wife and I have long dreamed of traveling the world together, and I felt now might be the right time." Though our vice president, Mark, tried to convince me otherwise, I think it's time I focus on my family. "I only hope my wife won't get tired of me around all the time," he added with a chuckle. A wave of relieved laughter rippled through the room. Mr. Kendall, known for his gentle nature as well as being a very devoted father and caring husband, had never raised his voice, not even once. It was hard to imagine his wife would ever feel that way about him. I couldn't help but picture his wife's serene smile in my mind. As for the new CEO, I won't reveal their name just yet. Mark and the others are organizing a farewell party for me in a month. And we'll introduce the new CEO then. There might be a few things I'll need your help with for the event, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you all for everything. I'll be sure to express my gratitude properly at the party." When Mr. Kendall bowed his head, the room erupted in applause, with several employees visibly moved. This alone showed just how well regarded he was by everyone. After that, we were dismissed, and everyone returned to their desks. Who do you think it'll be? Hopefully not Kimberly, or we're all doomed. Don't say that, Scott. That's terrifying. If that happens, we'll probably see a mass exodus. Yeah, that'd be scary. The whole office buzzed with speculation about the new CEO all day. The next day, another company-wide email came through, this time from Kimberly. "Everyone, please make sure preparations for the new CEO's welcome party is flawless. This is also Mr. Kendall's farewell, so no mistakes." Attached to the document that begins that way is a list detailing the responsibilities of each department. Our sales department, it seemed, was responsible for decorating the venue. I nodded to myself, taking it all in, when another email from Kimberly, not company-wide this time but just to me, popped up. "Especially you, Keith. Even someone with only a middle school education should mind their manners." Kimberly's words carried a hint of mockery, but I calmly replied without letting it faze me. "Understood." I sighed as yet another email arrived. "Persistent, aren't you, Kimberly?" I muttered, opening it. But it was not from her. "Hey, Scott, I think there's a box of gold balloons over there. Can you grab it?" On the day of the party, everyone was busy with preparations. Naturally, I was among them, decorating the venue. As assigned by Kimberly, each department handled their respective duties with energy and efficiency. "Found it. Here you go." "Thanks. This place is huge, but if we all work together, it'll look great. I'm excited to see how it turns out." "Let's keep it up," Scott responded with a smile. Across the room, I could see Tom setting up decorations on the speech podium. Being in sales, I'd never done this kind of decorating before, but after some research online and on social media, I thought we'd pulled off a pretty good look. "Are you doing it right?" Not bad." "So, the decoration leader is you, Keith?" Flipping through the documents, she must have spotted my name listed as the decoration manager. She started grinning and teasing me. "Not bad for someone like a middle school graduate. Maybe you should shift to a job where you can use this talent. How about creating an events department, just for you? You'd be its only member, though." She laughed to herself, though I had no idea what she found so funny. Ignoring her, I continued working. I knew from experience that talking to Kimberly would only lead to more trouble. Oh, by the way, here is the seating chart for you. Double check it later, will you? And don't mess it up. Just then, Kimberly hands me the seating chart. I started to take a look right there, but she gave me a nasty look. You don't need to open it here. Hurry up and finish the decorations. With her scolding, I quickly tucked the seating chart in my chest pocket and returned to my station to continue decorating. Honestly, I've got to make a good impression on the new CEO somehow. I hear her cheerful voice behind me, and I can't help but cringe. Trying to get in the new CEO's good graces, huh? Good luck with that. As the time for Mr. Kendall's retirement party draws near, guests begin taking their seats one by one. The venue is lavishly decorated, with luxurious food laid out, creating a truly festive atmosphere. Since my work here is done, I gathered with my junior, Scott, and colleague, Tom, to finally check out the seating chart Kimberly gave me. We all opened the chart, probably at the same table since we're in the same sales department. I'm at table E, seat 34. Hey, we're right next to each other. I've got table E, seat 33. Listening to them, I stare down at my own seat assignment in stunned silence. The words in front of me were written like this: restroom. I feel as if my heart has stopped for a moment. In disbelief, I double-check the chart, then triple-check it, but each time, it shows the same word, restroom. What the? What? My quiet exclamation makes both of them glance at me with puzzled looks. Too shocked to process, I stand there, rooted to the spot. Hey, are you okay? You seem a bit off. Seriously, what's going on? Is there something weird written on the seating chart? Growing impatient with my lack of response, the two leaned in to take a look at the seating chart themselves. And then, their expressions changed as they saw it. This has to be a mistake, right? This has to be some kind of joke, right? Please, let it be a joke. This is awful. It's so bad I can't even laugh at it, Tom muttered, unable to hide his bewilderment. Noticing my reaction, Kimberly walked over, covering her mouth as she began to laugh loudly. I look at her and ask for clarification. What? Why is my seat in the restroom? This has got to be some kind of joke, right? Oh, did you see it? For a middle school graduate like you, Keith, the restroom's where you belong. Restroom dining is all the rage these days, isn't it? Completely unable to comprehend her words, I just stare at her. It just suits you better, doesn't it? I mean, really, a non-elite like you in the same space as me? How audacious. Isn't that right, she says, displaying an attitude that's not acceptable even for a boss. Anger begins simmering quietly within me. The noise around me feels distant, as if I'm observing it from afar. Fine. If that's your attitude, I have a response of my own. I look at her with probably the iciest glare I've ever given her. And my voice has never sounded this low before. Noticing my change in demeanor, Kimberly's high-pitched laughter fades, and she stares at me, surprised. What are you going to do? You, a middle school graduate, who doesn't have any power at all. Her loud voice catches the attention of the whole room, and tension immediately fills the air. Just then, the doors open, and Mr. Kendall enters the room. Oh, Mr. Kendall. My apologies, there are still some staffs who haven't taken their seats. Please, give us just a moment. She tries to push us to our seats, laughing nervously. I sigh, finally deciding what to do. This time, I'm going to raise my voice loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. It seems Kimberly assigned me a seat in the restroom. Apparently, since I'm a middle school graduate, I belong there. So, I'll be excusing myself. My apologies, Mr. Kendall, for making a scene during your celebration. Ignoring Kimberly's panicked expression, I bow deeply to Mr. Kendall. She's visibly flustered, yet unable to come up with a solution. All she can do is mutter, without managing to say anything. Noticing our expressions, Mr. Kendall sighs deeply. Then, he switches on the nearby microphone and begins to speak. Well, Kimberly, you've really gone too far with this tasteless little prank of yours. Mr. Kendall. Well, I'm terribly sorry to everyone here, but if Keith is leaving, then I'll be taking my leave as well. After all, there's no point in having an unveiling party without our new CEO, right? A gasp of shock filled the room at Mr. Kendall's words. No way. Keith is the new CEO? Are you serious? Hold up. You're kidding, right? How did that happen? I'm not against it or anything, just wow. The two colleagues nearby are so flabbergasted that I can't help but laugh, despite how angry I was just moments ago. Then, another person nearby, Kimberly, stared at me with her mouth hanging open. For someone who claims to be an elite, her expression was surprisingly clueless. What? A middle school graduate? A middle school graduate as the new CEO? Kimberly's face went pale, and like a broken record, she kept repeating, a middle school graduate. Well, if the new CEO is leaving, then I'm out too. Scott enthusiastically raised his hand and announced he was heading home. Following suit, Tom did the same. Me too. I'd rather hear our new CEO's story in peace anyway. Let's head out. Their words set off a wave of agreement among the staff, who begin nodding to each other and calling out their intention to leave. One by one, they start gathering their things, preparing to leave the venue. Well then, everyone, shall we head back? Maybe we can regroup at the office for a quick talk? When I spoke to Mr. Kendall, he responded with a gentle smile. Let's do that, shall we, Mr. Underhill, our new CEO? And so, my first act as the new CEO wasn't exactly the address I'd planned, but it was clear enough. Everyone finished gathering their things and, leaving a stunned Kimberly behind, we all walked out of the venue. Back at the office, I gathered everyone in the conference room. I made sure each person had a drink from the vending machine, so they could relax a bit. Once everyone had settled down, Mr. Kendall and I stepped to the front. Looking around, I could see a mix of apprehension and anticipation in the employees' faces. Mr. Kendall began to speak first. With a calm yet firm voice, he started explaining why he chose me to be the new CEO. Thank you all for gathering today and coming back to the office. I know the sudden announcement of the new CEO must have been surprising. Scott, sitting in the front row, was nodding enthusiastically. Many others in the room were also nodding along. Now, I'd like to share with you why I chose Keith for this role. Everyone leaned in, and the room fell into a respectful silence. In fact, I'd been Keith's neighbor for quite some time. I remember him losing his father back when he was in middle school. After his father's passing, I watched as he took on responsibility, working tirelessly. It was by sheer coincidence that he ended up joining our company, as our families had grown apart by then. That was true. In those days, as the eldest of 6, I was helping raise a middle schooler, an elementary schooler, a preschooler, and an infant. By that time, Mr. Kendall's children were already high schoolers, so our families didn't interact much. Of course, when I see him around the neighborhood, I greet him and chat a little about the weather. So, you can imagine my surprise when that same neighborhood guy showed up at my job interview as the CEO. Every morning, he would get up early to help his mother, drop the younger kids off at daycare before going to work, and then pick them up in the evening after work. He'd take on cooking, help with homework, get them ready for bed, and read them stories. As Mr. Kendall spoke, memories of those days came flooding back. Those days were tough, but strangely, I didn't resent them. I remembered my father's words asking me to look out for my mother and siblings, and how endearing my younger brothers and sisters were. Over the years, I watched Keith continue to support his family. He'd even spend his days off playing with the younger kids. He could have spent those days sleeping in, but he'd always listen to their stories, always smiling. Everyone in the room was listening intently to Mr. Kendall's speech. Some employees with children were even a bit teary-eyed. Watching him, I began to think that Keith might be the one to lead this company someday. I believed he'd be someone who could guide and care for the employees like family. When the time came for me to step down, I wanted to entrust the company to him. Mr. Kendall paused before continuing. Of course, there was always a chance that Keith might change as he grew. So, I made sure to watch over him closely, keeping a careful eye on his development. His work has been flawless, and as he matured, he also developed a unique ability to understand people's hearts and move forward with them. A company is like one big family. And I became convinced that the one who truly values this family and can lead us all forward is none other than Keith. Around the room, employees were struggling to hold back their tears. In front of me, Scott was sniffling, his eyes brimming with tears. Tom's eyes were red, and he blinked repeatedly, trying to keep his composure. I bowed deeply, expressing my gratitude to Mr. Kendall. Everyone, from here on out, please support Keith. Just as you've been there for me all these years, I ask you to be there for him. He's more than capable. This is my last request as I step down from the company. Thank you very much. As Mr. Kendall bowed, the employees broke into applause, the sound filling the entire room. The sight moved me, leaving me momentarily at a loss for words. I accepted the mic from Mr. Kendall, took a deep bow, drew a steadying breath, and began to speak. Thank you, everyone. I didn't expect this opportunity from Mr. Kendall. At first, I declined, saying I wasn't capable of being CEO. But Mr. Kendall reassured me that I could do it. I truly struggled with the decision. I questioned myself, wondering if I was the right person. And I discussed it with my family. I recalled the day Mr. Kendall emailed me and summoned me to the CEO's office. The shock of being told that I'd be the next CEO. That was probably the biggest surprise of my life. When I shared it with my family, they were just as stunned, but they encouraged me, saying, "Why not give it a try?" But, to be honest, I've always liked this company. I've also really liked everyone who works here. Although I always thought Kimberly was a bit difficult. My honest remark made Scott burst into laughter, and soon, the laughter spread around the room. To be fair, Kimberly was particularly tough on me, though she treated everyone that way. She wasn't exactly someone people could easily warm up to. Everything that's happened, well, it's her own doing, honestly. I want to make this company an even better place with all of you. I already think it's a wonderful place. But I want to create an environment where honesty is rewarded and hardworking people receive the recognition they deserve. I want us to treat each other like family, supporting each other in our work. Will you lend me your strength? I look forward to your support. Toward the end, I couldn't stop my tears from flowing as I spoke. To hide it, I bowed deeply. There was a big round of applause for me, which didn't stop, and I heard voices cheering, "You got this, new CEO," which only grew louder. Though I felt embarrassed, I lifted my head, my face drenched in tears, and continued to express my gratitude. A gentle hand patted my shoulder, and when I turned, there was Mr. Kendall's warm smile. "See? I told you you'd be just fine. You're ready to lead as CEO now. Everyone will work together with you, so whenever things get tough, remember today. Keep this feeling close to your heart. Do your best, Mr. Underhill." I nodded firmly at his words, renewing my determination to give my all as the new CEO. The next day, as I was in the CEO's office, Kimberly came to see me. She looked pale, clearly nervous about facing me. But as the new CEO, I intended to formally address the disciplinary action regarding Kimberly. The complaints about her were far worse than I'd anticipated. Just yesterday, numerous employees came forward with reports about her behavior, some of which simply couldn't be ignored. That's why I'd called her in. Unexpectedly, however, Kimberly voluntarily offered her resignation. "Mr. Underhill, I am truly sorry for everything. I'd like to take responsibility for my actions and words up to this point. My husband was very upset with me as well. He was at the same hotel on business during yesterday's meeting. When I explained the situation, he was furious, saying he never expected me to act this way. I was slightly surprised and looked at her. Her eyes were swollen, and her face was puffier than usual. I decided to accept her resignation. Then, I tell Kimberly what I need to say. This is probably my last chance. Kimberly, thank you for your hard work. As you move on to a new path, please avoid making the same mistakes. You were the first woman promoted to manager here. There's no doubt you're talented. Please take this experience as a lesson, learn from it, and work to improve." Kimberly bowed deeply and left the office. I exhaled deeply, and from the next room, Tom, my secretary, walked in. Tom, who's actually in sales, agreed to act as my secretary because of his strong management skills. "Man, you really are too kind. She said some pretty harsh things to you over the years." I chuckled at Tom's exasperated expression. "Yeah, I know. But maybe this will help her change for the better." If her husband was angry too, I'm sure she felt the impact. I think that's all I needed to say. Maybe I'm being soft, but... Tom laughed at my words. "Well, call it kindness or whatever, it's just like you. A company needs someone like you leading it." And so, Tom and I embarked on this journey together, giving our all to the company. From early morning to late at night, I worked hard, listening to each employee and planning with a vision for the company's future. According to what Tom and Scott have told me, it seems the company's morale is on the rise. Keith's dedication to everyone shines through. The atmosphere here is really positive. Whatever comes our way, we feel ready to take it on together. Hearing the positive feedback from everyone, I was overjoyed and decided to hold a meeting to introduce a new project I had been developing. This project was designed for all employees to participate, encouraging their personal growth alongside the company's. With conviction, I explained the project's purpose and called on everyone for their support. This project is for us to grow as a team. I need your strength. Let's continue walking this path and growing together. The employees responded with enthusiastic applause, and 6 months later, the project yielded impressive results. Even as the work of being CEO often wore me down, my family was always there to support me. My younger siblings, still living at home, took great care in looking out for me. "Hey, Keith, you doing okay? Need a massage if you're tired? Are you sleeping enough? Those dark circles under your eyes are kinda serious." They gave me a massage and even handed me a warm eye mask. I couldn't help but get emotional, realizing how kind my little brother and sister, who used to be so small, have grown up to be. But when I started crying, they just looked at me weirdly. Why though? Every day, my mother offered words of encouragement, and no matter how late I returned, she always had a warm meal waiting. "Welcome home, Keith. You seem to be working especially hard today. Take a break, and remember to take care of yourself. Don't overdo it, okay?" Her comforting words and delicious cooking helped me relax, reminding me of just how precious my family's support was to me. All the hard work I poured into my role as CEO bore significant fruit a few years later. The company experienced remarkable growth, achieving record-breaking sales. Employees continued to rise to the challenge, bringing one successful project after another to life. All right. Thanks to everyone's efforts, our numbers are up. Let's have a celebration. I organized a gathering to show my appreciation and gave a speech to the entire team. Thanks to all of you, our company has come this far. Truly, thank you. I look forward to our continued success together. Applause filled the room as I expressed my heartfelt gratitude. There was nothing artificial in my words. They were my sincere feelings. I genuinely consider each of you not as mere employees, but as members of this family. Let's keep moving forward together as one family, making this company an even better place. My declaration brought smiles to everyone's faces. There are tough times, of course, moments when Tom scolds me or I need to vent my frustrations. Sometimes, I feel like crying or want to escape it all. But knowing that overcoming these challenges leads to everyone's smiles keeps me from running away. As CEO, I'll continue protecting everyone and growing alongside them. Each and every one of them matters deeply to me. My name is George Anderson. I'm the leader of the Anderson clan. My wife passed away when our daughter, Natalie, was still very young. Since then, I've raised her on my own, never remarrying. Now, my daughter is getting married, but I've deliberately kept the fact that I'm the head of the Anderson clan from her fiancé's family. I figured it might be fine if the groom's side was higher in status, but if the bride's side was, it might make him feel uncomfortable as a son-in-law. And so, the wedding day has arrived. Natalie, you look beautiful. You've grown up so well. I'm sure your mother is smiling down on you from the other side. For many years, it was just the two of us, but now that chapter ends today. There were times when she had a fever, got injured, and of course, the teenage years were a challenge. But looking back now, those are all fond memories. Thank you, Dad. Even after I'm married, I'll always be your daughter. She's grown into such a kind young woman, but it wasn't solely my effort. Many of my men helped fill in the gaps where I fell short. I'm sorry for making you carry the burden of being the daughter of a mob. It's nothing like that. I love you, Dad, even as a mob. Besides, I ended up choosing someone from the mob world too. She's right. If possible, I would have preferred her to marry someone from a normal life, but the man Natalie chose is the son of the leader of the Johnson clan. Naturally, her fiancé, Samuel, is also a mob. Since I'm in this life myself, I couldn't exactly oppose it, so I accepted their marriage. Dad, the reception is about to start. Oh, right. I'll head to the venue now. Okay, thank you, Dad. With those words, Natalie waved to me with a small gesture. Our little girl has grown up so much. I always thought she'd be my little one, but somewhere along the way, she became an adult. It's strange, I should feel happy, but I can't help feeling a little lonely. Hannah. I wish you were here to celebrate with me. Hannah was my late wife. Last night, I spoke to her at the altar, but no matter how much I spoke, I knew she wouldn't answer. I had to endure the solitude on my own. When I entered the reception hall, the staff guided me to my seat among the family members. However, when I saw the name tag on the seat, even I hesitated to sit. The name tag read, Thug Dad. What is this? I could understand father or parent. Even just my name would have been fine. But Thug Dad? What could that possibly mean? I scanned the room and noticed the leader of the Johnson clan looking at me. Not only that, but he was smirking as he watched me. What is going on? It seemed he hadn't realized I was the head of the Anderson clan. He didn't even bother to bow or come greet me. Well, I suppose I don't look the part today. But this name tag, this is going too far. Before I could even consider sitting down, the lights dimmed and music began to play. Then came the announcement, the bride and groom are entering. I had no choice but to sit in silence. Maybe I should just remove this tag. No, doing that would only give the Johnson leader more reason to mock me. Besides, if I get angry over something like this, Natalie will be the one who suffers. I stayed quiet and simply watched my daughter's entrance. As the bride and groom took their seats at the head table and the reception was about to begin, the Johnson leader stood and raised his voice. This is a celebration for mob only. He looked at me and laughed. So, this was planned all along. I didn't need to think too hard to understand what he meant. The words on my name tag were a message: "You're not a real mob." In other words, a declaration that I should leave. But even then, I stayed silent. This was my daughter's wedding. Leaving was not an option. Hey! Natalie's dad. This is a mob-only wedding. We don't need a thug like you here, so get out. I glanced at Natalie. She looked confused, clearly unaware of what was happening. This was all orchestrated by the Johnson clan, and she had no part in it. What's this about calling him a thug? What does this mean? You'll see soon enough. Why are you still sitting there? Your daughter just married into the Johnson family. We don't need a thug like you as an in-law. Get out already. When I didn't move, the Johnson leader stormed over to my seat. Hey, didn't you hear me? Yes, your son is marrying my daughter, but skipping today's ceremony is not an option for me. You've got some nerve, talking back to me. I already know you're just a low-level thug. The Johnson clan doesn't need relatives like you. Is that so? My apologies. But I'm not leaving. You think that's wise? This is the Johnson clan, the real deal. And your daughter is marrying into our family. If you don't listen to us now, your daughter's life will be nothing but hardship. Samuel. What's going on here? Stop your father. It's fine. Your father is nothing but a thug, a disgrace to the Johnson clan. Forget about him. What are you talking about? He's my father. He raised me single-handedly and is the most important person in my life. How dare you tell me to forget him? You have me and my parents now. That's all you need. Just listen to us from now on. You promised to treat my father with respect. And you actually believe that? I'd respect a proper mob, sure. But there's no respect for a thug. Natalie tried to get her fiancé, Samuel, to intervene, but he refused to listen. No matter what was said, I kept my eyes closed and remained silent. If I spoke even a single word, the ceremony would fall into chaos. And if that happened, Natalie would be the one who suffered. Why are you being so cruel? Please stop. He's my father, and he's important to me. Natalie, you're a Johnson now. Just listen to me. My father wants a mob-only celebration, and that's how it's going to be. I can't just accept that. If I'd known this was going to happen, I wouldn't have agreed to this wedding. What are you saying? You love me, don't you? If you do, you should listen to your husband. I may have agreed to the ceremony, but we haven't filed the marriage papers yet. So we're not officially married. A ceremony makes us a married couple. We just swore to live as husband and wife moments ago. If you're serious about being my husband, then stop your father's outrageous behavior. Why are you letting him insult my dad? I can't accept someone as my husband who can't stand up to his own parents. What the hell? This was decided from the start. From the start? What do you mean? I mean, I never planned to have someone as lowly as your father involved in our celebration. Just having him at this reception is unacceptable to me. And going forward, I'll never recognize your father as part of my family. My parents are the only family we'll ever need. How can you say something like that? Just as I noticed a change in Natalie's expression, she stood up from her seat and stepped down from the head table. Natalie, what's wrong? Dad, let's go home. Go home? But the reception is still happening. It's fine. I had no idea these people were like this. There's no way I can stay with people who act like this and think it's okay. If they can't respect my father, there's no way I could ever respect theirs. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, Dad. You've done nothing wrong. Samuel is the one at fault here. Natalie. Get back here. The reception isn't over. I'm not going back. This marriage is over. We already had the wedding ceremony. That's all we've done, and now I know what kind of person you are. If we'd already registered the marriage, getting out of it would have been a nightmare. Thanks for showing your true colors at the reception. With that, Natalie grabbed my name tag, slammed it onto the floor, and stomped on it. Let's go, Dad. Despite having dreamed of this day, my daughter's decisiveness was impressive. I stood up and began walking with her toward the exit. A murmur spread through the guests. It wasn't a reaction to an unexpected turn of events, but rather the murmurs from the gangsters who saw my face. Moreover, all the attendees turned pale, whispering that something serious had happened. Yet, neither Samuel nor his father, the Johnson leader, seemed to notice. The Johnson leader shouted, "What an outrageous woman! Good riddance to her!" But Samuel descended from the head table and ran after Natalie. "Natalie, you're joking, right? We said we'd get married. That's why we had the ceremony. Why would you choose some thug dad over my father, who's so much more respectable? All you have to do is see my dad as your own. What are you saying? Who are you calling a thug? Don't mess with me. The Johnson clan isn't even that big, yet you act so high and mighty." I kept quiet because I thought I loved you, but in the end, you're just part of the Anderson clan's umbrella. Even if we are a branch now, we're going to grow bigger. Once I'm the leader, you'll be the wife of a boss. So what? I don't care about that at all. Then, Isaac, one of the executives standing at the entrance of the venue, approached us. Isaac is my close aide, a man who is always by my side no matter the circumstances. "Boss, are you leaving?" I nodded silently, and Isaac bowed deeply before glaring at Samuel. Seeing this, the Johnson leader's mouth fell open in shock. Until now, he had thought I was just a low-level thug. Seeing my lieutenant bow to me caught him completely off guard. But even so, the Johnson leader tried to save face. "So what if you've got a lieutenant? It's probably a tiny group anyway. Small fry always try to show off at events like this." Hearing this, Isaac's expression darkened, and he moved as if to confront the Johnson leader. However, it was clear that allowing it would cause Isaac's anger to explode. I tried to stop Isaac and leave the venue. But at that moment, Samuel shouted, "If you walk out now, it's over. Everyone will laugh at Natalie. She'll never get married again. You're already 28 if I don't marry you. No one else will." His words ignited my anger. I almost turned to glare at him, but before I could react, Natalie shouted back, "Marry someone who disrespects my dad? Don't be ridiculous. If I married you, I'd be the one laughed at. And for your information, I can get married if I want to. You, on the other hand, will probably never find anyone else. You poor thing. With your attitude about only respecting your own parents, no one will ever want to be with you. You'll be single for life, congratulations." With that, Natalie strode forward, ignoring Samuel's desperate attempts to call her back. Natalie had chosen to walk away from her wedding, even discarding her wedding dress, all for my sake. This made me wonder how she must be feeling inside. She must be devastated, I thought, but after some time staring out the window, Natalie suddenly shouted, "I mean, seriously, this is so frustrating." Then she turned to Isaac. "Hey, Isaac, what do you think? Can you believe I actually picked someone that rude? I'm so mad at myself. Can you believe it, Dad? They insulted you. They mocked the Anderson clan, acting high and mighty while being just a subordinate branch. There isn't a leader in this world as remarkable as you. And then, to top it off, they tell me to forget my father and revere that old Johnson as my parent? That's disgusting. The very thought of it makes my skin crawl. Isn't that right, Isaac? Absolutely, Natalie. You're spot on. If you had gone through with that marriage, even I would have been deeply disheartened. Exactly. It's absolutely outrageous. Mocking my father is unforgivable. Honestly, I wish I could have grabbed Samuel by the collar right there and stomped on him. And do you know what they wrote on your name tag, Dad? Thug Dad. Thug. As if that low-level mob, who can't even stand up to his own father, has any room to talk. And then he had the nerve to say I'd never find anyone else if I broke it off. Unbelievable. Isaac continued to nod and echo her words. Indeed, Natalie, you're absolutely right. Meanwhile, back at the reception hall, chaos had erupted. The attendees, having realized that I was the head of the Anderson clan, urged the Johnson leader to ensure the marriage wasn't called off for the sake of their organization's reputation. Although he found it hard to believe at first, he realized it would be a serious matter if true, and instructed Samuel to mend his relationship with Natalie. Receiving the instruction, Samuel thought that if that were the case, he would have to apologize and reconcile, even if it meant bowing his head. That night, Samuel decided to call Natalie in an attempt to patch things up. Natalie, you must be exhausted from today. Exhausted? Seriously? Why are you calling me? We're done, remember? Don't be like that. I was just nervous, that's all. Nervous? That's no excuse for saying you'd abandon my father. You don't have a shred of decency. I'm really sorry. I mean it. Even my dad regrets saying what he did. Please, let's make up. I want to marry you. Well, I don't want to marry you. You're joking, right? Not even close. By the way, is it true? Is your dad really the head of the Anderson clan? That's right. Why didn't you tell me? If I'd known, none of this would have happened. Because my father didn't want to hurt your pride. He thought you wouldn't want to marry someone from a more prominent family. Oh, that's what it was. If you think it's so intimidating, maybe you shouldn't have wanted to marry me in the first place. No, that's not it. I don't care if your family's more prestigious. So, you'd prefer it to be above yours? Well, yeah, I guess. But if you'd just told me. There was nothing to tell. Come on, Natalie. Let's not end things like this. You're already 28. If we break up now, you'll have a hard time finding someone else. Let's just sign the marriage papers and move on. Excuse me? You're worried about me being single? Well, don't be. I wouldn't marry you if you were the last man on earth. That's incredibly rude. Why are you mad? I'm offering to marry you. Oh, now that you know I'm from the main family, you're saying you'll marry me for the Johnson clan's benefit? And then you say you're offering to marry me? Maybe learn how to talk to people first. Not that it matters, I'd never marry you. Ever. With that, Natalie hung up the phone. The next day, the Johnson leader and Samuel showed up at the Anderson clan's office. Well, yesterday got a bit out of hand, didn't it? What brings you here? Let's not be so formal. The Johnson clan and the Anderson clan have a unique relationship, don't we? And what exactly do you mean by that? I'm talking about your daughter's marriage to my son. Natalie's already said she doesn't want to marry him. Well, sure, but she was still talking to Samuel last night. That means they can't completely let go of each other, right? Why don't we, as adults, support these two young people? I heard Samuel said something inappropriate again last night. I'm simply respecting Natalie's wishes. Respecting her wishes is important, but let's not forget that young people can be rash. Samuel is destined to lead the Johnson clan. Wouldn't it be better for Natalie to marry someone with such a promising future? She doesn't need to marry into your family. Come now, let's put the past behind us. If we forget everything and let them move forward as a couple, I'm sure things will work out just fine. Forget everything? That's right. We're the in-laws here, after all. Since she's marrying into our family, it's only natural for her to follow what we say. However, it seems she doesn't quite understand that. Perhaps it's because she's the daughter of the head of the main family. But I'm a broad-minded man. I've decided to completely forget about what happened and welcome Natalie into our family. I see, welcome her, huh? That's quite the generous offer, but I refuse. Why not? We're offering to take her as a bride. Let's not forget Natalie isn't getting any younger. At 28, she doesn't have much time to start a family. I'm saying this for her sake. She doesn't need your concern. I'll find someone better suited for her. It's always better for two people who are in love to be together, don't you think? That way, the relationship between the Anderson clan and the Johnson clan will remain stable, the Johnson leader argued. Johnson, are you misunderstanding something? Even if my daughter marries your son, the Anderson clan isn't selling out to the Johnson clan. I retorted sharply. Yes, of course. I didn't mean it like that. I just want the young couple to be happy. Johnson, take a good look around. Do you see the faces of my lieutenants? If you keep pushing your luck, you won't be leaving this office in one piece. The Johnson leader hesitated, glancing around to see my men glaring at him, their eyes full of barely restrained fury, as if ready to pounce at any moment. Oh, no need for hostility here. I'll be taking my leave now. But you know where to find me if you change your mind. We're always ready to welcome Natalie into our family. With those parting words, he quickly left. The door hadn't even closed before I barked, "Throw some salt at the door." After failing to bring down the daughter and unable to sway the father, Johnson decided to take a different approach. To that end, he gave some advice to his son, Samuel. Unaware of this scheme, Natalie, believing it to be an important discussion, went to the cafe where they had met many times for their dates. What's this important thing you wanted to talk about? Natalie asked coldly. Don't be so harsh. We're engaged, aren't we? Talking like this will just ruin our relationship. Oh, please. Your father barged into my dad's office yesterday, saying he'd take me as my son's bride. Who would be happy about that? I'm sure my dad just really likes you. That's why he's so insistent that we get married. Let's make up, Natalie, for his sake. Think of it as being a good daughter-in-law. Good daughter-in-law? That's for your parents' sake, not mine. My father doesn't want any of this. Of course he does. Your dad must want us to marry. After all, you're almost past the age for marriage. 28 isn't old, and I'd rather take my time and avoid regret than rush into a mistake. Sure, but we've been in love for so long. We've shared so much, haven't we? It's disgusting to think about now. Honestly, it was all a mistake. You're saying being with me was a mistake? That's exactly what I'm saying. The wedding reception made that clear. So, is that your important talk? If so, we're done here. No, it's not just that. I brought this. Samuel pulled out a marriage registration form. Sign it. What? Why would I do that? Look, if you won't agree willingly, I'll have to force you. I can't let you back out of this marriage. Why are you so obsessed with this? I've already told you I'm not marrying you. Do you know how much we spent on the wedding reception? You're wasting all that money. Then bill my father. He'll handle it however he sees fit. That's not the point. Marriage would solve everything. Breaking up solves everything, too. No marriage needed. Why are you being so stubborn? Isn't it obvious? You disrespected my father. You mocked him, writing Thug Dad on his name tag and telling me to call your inferior father mine. You told me to accept only the Johnson leader as my father. It's disgusting. That's why I'm saying no. So you really won't marry me? That's right. I won't. Then I've got no choice. I'll force you to sign. Forcing me? Yeah. My dad said to do whatever it takes. Once you sign, the marriage is legal. I won't do it. I wouldn't marry you even if you were the last man on earth. Shut up. Marriage means obeying your husband. And I'm offering to marry you, so just sign already. Samuel forcibly tried to make her hold a pen and sign. She tried to resist and stop him, but he was a man, and his strength was overwhelming. There was no way she could win. She let out a scream and desperately called for help. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Isaac appeared, punching Samuel hard and sending him sprawling. You bastard! What do you think you're doing to Natalie? Isaac, why are you here? Natalie asked, both shocked and relieved. I heard you were going out and had a bad feeling, so I followed you. I hope I didn't overstep. No, you saved me. Thank you. Get out of here. Isaac growled at Samuel, dragging him outside. What happens next? Well, in the world of the mob, you don't need much imagination to guess. Natalie, quick on her feet, immediately grabbed her phone and called both me and the Johnson leader, asking us to come as soon as possible. When she stepped outside, she found exactly what she expected. Isaac was beating Samuel to a pulp. Please, stop. There's no need to hit me so much. Samuel pleaded. Shut up. If you don't want to get hit, hit me back. Hit back? I can't. Samuel, overwhelmed with fear, had wet himself. His pants were soaked, a clear sign of his humiliation. Pathetic, Natalie muttered. You talk so big, but you're absolutely worthless. I'm so glad I didn't marry someone like you. Samuel, now sobbing, begged for mercy. Please, forgive me. I was just doing what my dad told me. If you keep this up, my face will be ruined. I don't care what happens to your face. Samuel was on his knees, crying and pleading desperately. At that moment, I arrived with Johnson. What the hell is going on here? This guy called me out and tried to force me to sign the marriage registration. Luckily, Isaac showed up and stopped him. I see. So, Johnson, care to explain what this is all about? Well, I have no idea. My son must have done this on his own. That's a lie. You told me to force her to sign. You idiot. Don't say unnecessary things. Enough of this. I'm not giving my daughter to the likes of you. The Johnson clan is finished. Wait, boss. Please, anything but that. You can't disband us. Oh? So you don't want to disband? Of course not. Then here's what you'll do. Pay compensation for what your son tried to do to my daughter. Compensation? All right, if money will settle this, how much do you want? $10 million. 10 million? That's outrageous. It's not outrageous at all. 1 or 2 million would be easy for the Johnson clan, but 10 million? That's a challenge. And that's why it's 10 million. That's impossible. We can't afford that. Then you'll disband. All right. Fine, we'll pay it somehow. Pay it now. That's impossible. Then borrow it. Isn't that what loan sharks are for? Fine. Samuel, this is your mess. You'll borrow the 10 million and repay it. That's ridiculous, Dad. I was just doing what you told me. Why do I have to pay for it? Because I'm the leader, and I can't leave the clan's business. Stop with the family bickering. Both of you are responsible for this mess. Split it, 5 million each. Borrow it and pay it back together. This is absurd. Johnson groaned. I've already called a loan shark to take you two to the survival game. Survival game? That's deadly. You tried to ruin my daughter's life. This is the least you deserve. Shortly after, the loan shark arrived and escorted them to their fate. Samuel, pathetic as ever, cried the entire way. Watching them leave, Natalie muttered, I'm so glad I didn't marry him. You're absolutely right, Natalie. But you really need to improve your taste in men, or this could happen again. True, but honestly, being 28 as a woman is stressful. If I wait too long, I'll risk a late pregnancy. I started feeling the pressure at 25. And now at 28, it's even worse. There's no need to rush. You're beautiful, kind, and thoughtful. The right person will come along. Wait. You think I'm beautiful? Of course. And kind? Absolutely. You're a wonderful person and the best daughter any father could ask for. I guarantee it. In that case, Isaac, why don't you marry me? Wait. Are you serious? Of course I am. What do you think, Dad? Love is the best foundation for a relationship, and yet Natalie had suddenly proposed such a bold idea. If it's Isaac, I have no complaints. Isaac initially looked troubled, but he didn't seem entirely displeased. After about a year of dating, they safely became a married couple and are now living with me. To top it off, we're expecting a grandchild next year, which is truly a blessing. Hey, do you have any idea how many hospitals are part of our network across the country? I believe there are 10 of them, but why do you ask? Well, the newest one, a clinic my dad set up as a sort of volunteer effort in a remote town, that's where you're being transferred. What? There's no place for you at this hospital anymore. I warned you, didn't I? I said I'd make you regret what you did. As Mr. Thompson's son, Alex, said this with a smug smile, my mind went blank. It's not that I don't want to accept the reassignment. If it's necessary, I'd gladly go, but this was clearly just harassment from Alex. Because I talked back to him, he ordered me to be transferred to a clinic in a remote town. Of course, there are people there who need help, and helping them is a doctor's responsibility. I understand that, but I still want to make a difference on the front lines. But Alex made this decision because he couldn't stand me using a transfer as a form of harassment. I understand. This is an official decision from the hospital, then? I checked with my dad, and he approved the transfer right away. I mean, I'm the one who's close enough to see you every day. Just remember, this is what happens when you tick off someone with connections in upper management. He said that, grinning from ear to ear. I regretted my words a little, but I hadn't said anything wrong. I believe that if I keep doing the right thing, one day, I'll be confident I did the right thing. Holding on to that belief, I put my thoughts in order and headed to the clinic where I'd been reassigned. Just as I expected, it was a quiet place, with many elderly folks around and a peaceful atmosphere. Fortunately, there weren't any life-threatening cases, and only a few people had serious illnesses. Half of the people coming to the clinic were just here to chat. As long as everyone was staying healthy, there was no problem. I just kept preparing myself, ready for whenever my time to act would come. One quiet day, during these routine days. Dr. Adams. There's an emergency. Michael crashed his truck into his house. They're bringing him over now, and it looks serious. The patient who was brought in was in a horrible condition I'd never seen before, and due to his age, his survival was uncertain. I gathered every bit of knowledge and experience I had, administered the best emergency care I could. and drove him to a hospital in the city equipped for surgery. This is an emergency. I shouted louder than I ever had when we arrived at the hospital. He's losing a lot of blood, with 3 major areas of injury. I've given first aid, but his condition is critical. Please, hurry. Understood. After 2 hours of surgery, he managed to survive. I'm so glad he made it. Your quick emergency care saved him. Without that immediate blood control and wound pressure, he probably wouldn't have made it. Thank you. I'm just relieved he's alive. That's all that matters. The patient and townspeople expressed their gratitude, and I returned to my regular routine. I sincerely hoped there wouldn't be another accident like that and reminded myself to always be ready to respond. One day, though. It's been a while. How have you been? I was stunned to see a man who'd come to the clinic. It was none other than Mr. Thompson, from my days working in Tokyo. Even back then, he was usually busy with his own work, and we only saw each other a few times a week. I wondered what could bring him here. Long time no see, sir. But what brings you all the way out here? My name is James Adams, and I currently work at a hospital. I started working here 3 years ago, and I believe I've grown into a dependable doctor. I think I was trying harder than most people in this hospital. I treated each patient well and took pride in this work. My journey began back in elementary school. I was born to a stay-at-home mom and a dad who worked as an office employee, leading a simple but happy life. I'm home. Welcome back. I baked some of your favorite cookies, so go wash your hands, and you can have some. Really? Awesome. I was just craving cookies. Since my mother was a stay-at-home mom, she was always there for me when I was little. As I got older, I learned that my father worked for a small and medium-sized company and was so busy that he rarely had a day without overtime. Because of that, I grew very attached to my mom. Mom, your cookies are the best in the world. Thank you, sweetie. Hearing that makes all the effort worth it. Should we save some for Dad, too? He works so hard, I think it'll make him happy. I was a lively, mischievous boy, probably pretty loud to have around. But my mom was always kind to me, never letting that bother her. Of course, she wasn't only gentle, but she could be strict, too. But because of her kind presence, I grew up smoothly with barely any rebellion. Then one day, when I was in 6th grade, I came home as usual and found Mom lying down. Huh? Are you not feeling well? I haven't been feeling great lately. I'll get dinner ready soon, though, so just hang on a bit. If you're not feeling well, you should rest. I can go get some food for us. Could I have some money? All right, if you don't mind, please do. And with the leftover money, you can buy yourself a treat. By the time I was in upper elementary, I noticed more days when Mom wasn't feeling well. I probably should have realized then that Mom had a chronic illness. Her condition worsened over time, and by the time I started middle school, she spent most days in bed. She never told me what exactly her illness was, and I was busy with school, so I couldn't always keep an eye on her. But even then, I could tell she was suffering. It was obvious, looking at her. I knew things were only going to get worse. Dad. Mom's not doing well these days. Shouldn't she go to the hospital? Yeah. I've been thinking that too. She says she's fine, but she doesn't look fine. Maybe we should all go this weekend. Yeah, it's better to go before things get worse. We were all worried about her, so we decided to take her to the hospital that Saturday. But things took a turn on Friday. When I came home from school, Mom was lying on her bed. But this time, she didn't say welcome home like she always did. No matter how unwell she felt, she would always say welcome home when I came in. She wasn't moving at all, and I rushed over to her, worried. Mom. Mom. I shook her shoulder, my mind going blank as chills ran down my spine. Mom had lost consciousness. I was just a kid, and a fear crept in. Was she gone? Not knowing who to call, I grabbed her phone and called my dad. Dad, help! Mom won't wake up. My words shook him too, but after a deep breath, he calmly gave me instructions. First, I checked her pulse and told Dad she still had one. He called for an ambulance right away, and I stayed by Mom's side, keeping the line open. Within minutes, the ambulance arrived, and Mom was taken to the hospital. I rode along, waiting in the waiting room until Dad arrived. She made it through, thanks to the ambulance, but her condition is serious. She'll need to be admitted. Please make the necessary arrangements. I could tell from Dad's face that this was more than serious. So Mom was admitted, and every day after school, I went to see her at the hospital. I kept hoping that with treatment, she would get better, but her frail appearance filled me with fear every day. She greeted me with smiles and even cracked jokes, but I felt she was pushing herself. Looking back, she really was pushing herself, and her body was struggling, so she must have been in real pain. But as a mother, she never showed weakness in front of me. 3 months later, Mom passed away. Despite all the treatments, her life couldn't be saved. I was devastated, feeling a sorrow I'd never felt before and might never feel again. If anyone had asked me as a kid what I loved most in this world, I would have answered without hesitation, my mother. Her presence meant everything to me, and after she passed, I felt like I was wandering in endless darkness, unsure how to go on. But even with her gone, the reality remained that my father and I had to keep living together. So, the two of us decided to support each other and move forward. I'm home. Sorry I'm late. Did you eat already? I heated up some instant curry. I made some rice for you too. Want me to fix you a plate? Could you? I'll go take a shower first. Since Mom had started getting sick, Dad and I had taken over the household chores together. So, transitioning to just the two of us wasn't too difficult in terms of time or chore division. But the emptiness in our hearts never seemed to go away. It wasn't that I didn't love my dad. He was the most important person in my world, and I genuinely cared about him. But the void left by my mom's passing was far larger than I'd anticipated. And it wasn't just me, Dad felt the same. Driven by a sense of duty to take care of me, he did his best to keep going, but that only lasted about 3 years. By the time I was finishing middle school, Dad had developed mental health issues from stress and could no longer work. I'm so sorry. I'm nothing but a burden to you. Useless father I am. What are you talking about? You've been there for me, Dad. Without you, I wouldn't have made it through middle school or survived Mom's passing. So please, stop blaming yourself. Thanks to Dad's efforts to support me, I was eventually able to pull through my grief over Mom. But there was no one there to support Dad in the same way. The combined weight of losing Mom and the stress of work took a toll on his mind. Dad wasn't just unable to go to work, but he reached a point where mental strain made even physical movement difficult. Thankfully, with the savings he'd built up and the insurance money, we'd be able to manage for a few years. And since Dad couldn't work, he was eligible for welfare support. Our lifestyle wasn't lavish, but we could get by. I could have started working to support him. But I wasn't only thinking about the short term, I was looking further into the future. Dad, I want to be a doctor. Even if I started working now, I'd always carry the burden of a middle school education. Plus, I want to save people like Mom. I don't want anyone else to go through what we did. Dad agreed with my plan and told me not to worry about the money, just to work toward my dreams. So, we began receiving welfare support, and I enrolled in a public high school. Of course, we couldn't afford tutoring, but I poured myself into studying on my own. As a result, I got accepted into a public medical school. I had to take out student loans, but I was determined not to waste this opportunity, so I studied with everything I had. Now, 3 years into being a doctor, here I am. As a doctor, I keep studying every day, striving to reach new heights. There's always more to learn, and the higher my skills go, the more lives I can save. Thanks for your hard work. Are you still staying? I'm just looking over my patient's medical chart. Something's been bothering me. I remember seeing similar symptoms in a book I read recently. So I'm trying to figure it out. I can see you're giving it your all, but don't push yourself too hard, okay? If you overdo it, it could take a toll. I'm still considered a junior doctor, but my seniors and the nurses have started recognizing my efforts. Having their support made me happy and motivated me to keep going. And since I began working as a doctor, Dad's health had gradually improved, too. The more I achieved in my role, the happier it made him. With his encouragement, I was able to keep pushing myself. But then, are you enjoying basking in your own effort? Huh? You just like hearing everyone tell you how hard you're working, don't you? To put it bluntly, you're just incompetent. You can't even get your work done within your hours. Do you realize you don't have what it takes as a doctor? Yes. I still have a lot to improve on, so I'm working hard every day. Your effort annoys everyone around you. Stop showboating, or I'll have you transferred. The word transfer shocked me, and I couldn't find anything to say in response. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was working hard every day to save my patients, so why did I have to be criticized for it? Maybe in the hospital's business mindset, they had a reason to complain. But as a doctor, my focus is on saving as many lives as possible. That's why it felt so frustrating to hear complaints about my approach. Besides, he used his position as Mr. Thompson's son to say whatever he wanted. Even though he went through med school, no one here really respected him as a doctor. Mr. Thompson himself was too busy with his own work to notice just how tyrannical his son Alex had become at the hospital. I had the support of those around me who recognized my efforts, while Alex had neither trust nor respect from anyone. It was obvious who was in the right. I don't believe I'm doing anything wrong. Your attitude is what's annoying. Who do you think you are? At the very least, I'm facing my patients seriously as a doctor, not using my position as the director's son to throw my weight around. I knew it was provocative, maybe more than necessary. But someone like him needed to hear it straight. I didn't think my work deserved to be belittled, and he needed to see the absurdity of his actions. Always slacking off while using his dad's authority. But, so, you think it's okay to speak to me like this? I realize it's disrespectful, but I'm simply stating the obvious. Whatever. But don't think I'll forget what you said. I'm going to make you regret ever defying me. With that, he stormed off. Maybe he'd try some form of harassment, but I resolved that no matter what he did, I wouldn't waver in my values or beliefs. No matter the circumstances, my focus would remain on saving lives. I reminded myself of this again. Then, one day, a week later, I was summoned by Alex. Hey, do you have any idea how many hospitals we have in our network nationwide? I believe there are 10 of them, but what does that have to do with anything? Well, our newest facility, a clinic my dad set up as a kind of volunteer project in a remote town, you're being transferred there. What? There's no place for you at this hospital. Didn't I tell you? I'd make you regret this. Seeing his smug smile, I felt my mind go blank. It wasn't that I didn't want to accept the transfer. If it were truly necessary, I'd go willingly, but this was clearly Alex's way of getting back at me. Just because I talked back, he decided to send me to a rural clinic as a form of punishment. Of course, there were people there who needed help, and as a doctor, it was my duty to serve them. But I had my heart set on making a difference here on the front lines. The number of patients at this hospital far exceeded those who'd visit a clinic in a remote village. I wanted to keep honing my skills here, aiming higher as a doctor, so I could ultimately help more people. But I had no intention of refusing. No matter where I was, my core belief was always to give my all to save the patients in front of me. Understood. This is an official directive from the hospital, then? I checked with my dad, and he approved the transfer immediately. I'm the one who knows you best, after all. Let this be a life lesson about what happens when you cross someone with connections in the upper echelons. He delivered his words with a smug grin from start to finish. I felt a twinge of regret over what I'd said, but I knew I hadn't said anything wrong. I believed that if I continued doing the right thing, someday, I'd see that my actions were justified. With that faith, I put my feelings in order and headed to the assigned clinic. As I'd expected, the place was quiet, with plenty of elderly patients and a calm atmosphere. Fortunately, there were no critical cases, and only a few patients had serious illnesses. Half of the visitors just came by to chat, but if everyone was healthy, there was no problem with that. I'd just stay prepared, waiting for when I'd be needed. Then, one day, during these quiet, uneventful days, Dr. Adams. There's an emergency. Michael crashed his truck right into his house. Everyone's bringing him over now, but he's in terrible shape. Living in such a remote village, it was common for people to drive small trucks a few times a month for shopping. While some folks used bikes to get around, I'd never once heard of any major accidents here. Everyone took care to drive safely. So this report took me by surprise, but having worked in a Tokyo hospital, I'd handled situations like this many times before. To steady my pulse, which was racing after so long without an emergency, I took a deep breath. The patient they brought in was in a dire state, unlike anything I'd ever seen, and his age made his survival uncertain. But I repeated my conviction to myself once again. It's a doctor's duty to save those they can, and I didn't want to see anyone else grieving the loss of a loved one, as I had with my father. I quickly drew on every bit of knowledge and experience I had, performing the best emergency care I could. And then rushed him to a hospital in town equipped for surgery. "Emergency room, please." At the hospital, I shouted louder than I'd ever shouted in my life. Even though it was a city hospital, it wasn't a particularly large one. The reception staff and nurses looked shocked. Most of them had probably never seen a patient in such a devastating condition before. Some even froze, paralyzed by the sight. Without experience, it's understandable not to believe someone could survive this state. He has 3 major injuries. I performed first aid, but he's critical. Please hurry. Understood. 2 strokes of luck helped ensure a smooth transfer to emergency surgery. It was because I'd handled so many emergency cases before that I knew exactly how to administer effective first aid. By performing thorough emergency treatment, I could buy the patient as much time as possible until surgery. And second, this hospital was part of the same network as my clinic, and I had a doctor friend here. While transporting the patient, I contacted him in advance. After about 2 hours of surgery, the patient survived. I'm so relieved. Thank you for your incredible first aid. If you hadn't stopped the bleeding and applied pressure to the wounds, his chances wouldn't have been nearly as high. I see. I'm just glad he made it. That's what matters. To be honest, I'd been prepared for him not to survive. His condition had been that severe, and even if he hadn't made it, I wouldn't have blamed the surgeon. But hearing that my emergency treatment had saved him made me grateful to have been there. The patient, along with people from the town, thanked me, and I returned to my usual routine. I hoped nothing like that would happen again, reminding myself to always be ready to respond. Then, one day. It's been a while. How have you been? I was stunned when I saw the man who'd come to the clinic. It was Mr. Thompson from my days working in Tokyo. He was usually busy with his own work, and even in Tokyo, we only crossed paths a few times a week. I wondered what brought him all the way out here. Long time no see, sir. But what brings you here? I heard about a major accident a few days ago. I understand you handled the emergency care? Yes, that's true. I'm surprised it reached you, though. The surgeon told me all about it. Thanks to your swift first aid, the man survived. Your care was excellent. And he said you're a highly skilled doctor. So I did some investigating. Forgive the blunt question, but what's someone like you doing here? I was left speechless by Mr. Thompson's words. I was proud of what I'd done. If it had been someone else handling first aid, the patient might not have survived. But I thought my reassignment had been decided by unanimous consensus from the hospital's upper management. So to have Mr. Thompson come all this way and say what he did was a surprise. Thank you for the kind words, but I was sent here on hospital orders. Yes, that's true, but the problem lies in who gave those orders. When I started looking into it, I found out that my son was behind this. So, will you come back to Tokyo? Hearing this, everything suddenly clicked into place. My reassignment had been Alex's doing alone. He demoted me just because he was angry at what I'd said. Sure, he had a medical license, but he didn't deserve to call himself a doctor. That's what I thought. Still, I'm truly glad the patient made it. My motto is to save every life I can. Indeed. I believe it's that kind of conviction that makes someone fit to be a doctor. With that, Mr. Thompson brought me back to the Tokyo hospital and led me to a meeting room. Inside were his close associates and Alex himself. Now, let's have a proper explanation. Why was such a talented doctor sent off to a rural clinic? Well, You took this action on your own, didn't you? So how are you going to take responsibility? He is a shining example of dedication. Yet you forced him out. Care to explain why? I hadn't had much interaction with Mr. Thompson, nor had I ever worked directly with him, but I could see that when angry. He was a force to be reckoned with. From what I'd heard from senior doctors, Mr. Thompson was usually a mild-mannered person. And like me, he ran the hospital with a firm sense of purpose, earning the respect of many in the medical community. It was clear that he wouldn't stay silent when something went against his principles. Well, I'll give you one chance to answer. Why is a failure like you in Tokyo while someone as skilled as him was reassigned? I'm sorry. I didn't mean any harm. I just got a little carried away. I thought of it as a way to toughen him up. So, you made a decision that harmed this hospital's interests for such a trivial reason? Well, that's all I need to know. You'll be accepting a reassignment yourself. Not only I, but everyone in the room was taken aback by the director's words. No one had expected that Mr. Thompson would order his own son's demotion. Certainly, what Alex did was inexcusable. I understood why Mr. Thompson was furious, but no one had expected he would go so far as to order his son's reassignment. No way, Dad. You can't be serious. You know that's impossible. And why exactly is it impossible? Because, well, just think about it. Why should I be the one demoted? I've been working so hard here, why should I be punished? Don't make me laugh. Even if that were true, you were the one who decided to demote someone who was working tirelessly. So, I believe I'm being fair. Alex had no response to this. The director's argument was too sound, leaving him with nothing to say. And from my perspective, Alex hadn't achieved anything worthwhile. You still have a long way to go as a person. Take this time to reflect and work hard to grow as a doctor. That's your duty. Are you serious? You really mean this? I have no patience for people who can't take responsibility. I'm saying you might never work in this hospital again. With that, Alex fell silent, offering no further objections. In the end, he was reassigned to the rural clinic where I'd been working. I heard he now spends his days caring for elderly patients. Whether he'll have a change of heart and put in the work remains to be seen. If he thinks he can slack off out there, he may never make it back to the front lines. As for me, I'll keep listening to my patients and giving my all as a doctor. I'm proud of my work, and I intend to hold on to my beliefs as I move forward. I hope that, even if just a little, I can help prevent others from feeling the pain of losing someone precious, as my father and I did. Can you actually see? I approached the beautiful woman with a white cane whom I often see on the train, gathering the courage to speak to her. She stiffened, then turned her face toward me. And then, from her mouth came a shocking response I never would have expected. It turns out, the guy who was harassing her was the same one who constantly gave me trouble at work. By sheer chance, I witnessed the whole thing. Normally, I'm not very confident and tend to be timid, but I knew I couldn't just stand by. I summoned all the courage I could. Apologized to her. She's carrying a white cane, so she's visually impaired, right? How could you bring yourself to hurt someone like that? I saw you raise your hand against her. My name is Benjamin, and I'm 41. I work for Foster Foods, a company that operates cafes like Roasting Village and Foster Beans, which are popular across the country. Luckily, my hard work was recently recognized, and I was appointed leader of the new product development team for the upcoming year. At my age, I shouldn't feel this way, but I'm not exactly the most confident person. I've known for a while that I need to change, and this new opportunity made me think, this is my chance to really turn things around. Right now, I'm not especially close with my colleagues. I always feel a little out of place and hesitant to join the group. So, I thought I'd start by getting closer to my team and building a strong spirit in our product development team. Maybe I feel left out because I'm still single. Or am I the only one thinking that? No, I don't think that's the case. Even I once had someone I promised to marry. Her name was Sarah, 3 years my senior. She would say I'd bring out her nurturing side and push her way into my life, like a devoted wife-to-be. Back then, I was in my 20s, and I didn't exactly mind. Then, one day, she suddenly asked to break up. You're just too unreliable. You're always passive, and I don't feel any real love from you. I started to worry about marrying you. Her words left me stunned. I thought things were headed toward marriage, no problem, but then, out of nowhere, she changed her tune. Seeing my fumbling response, Sarah grew even more disappointed and left. Since then, I haven't been able to shake my discomfort around women or people in general, really. After work, people in the department often go out for meals or drinks together, but I always head straight home by myself. An hour-long train ride takes me back to my apartment. It's the one place where I can truly relax. Our new product development team has 5 members, including me. With summer approaching, Henry, our department head, asked us to focus on refreshing cold drinks and new desserts. As the chosen team leader, I want to meet Henry's expectations. I was ready to give it my all. But then, almost immediately, a problem arose. Benjamin is way too desperate. It's so cringy. This guy on my team, Kevin, makes it no secret that he dislikes me. He's constantly giving me this mocking look. But now that I'm the leader, I want to make it work with everyone. Ignoring his comment, I spoke up to the group. Let's work hard on this new product development. The team exchanged glances, giving each other a knowing look. Feeling awkward, I ended up bowing my head a bit. Oh, yeah, looking forward to it. Seeing my apologetic demeanor, they all burst out laughing. It didn't feel like friendly laughter, it was more like they were laughing at me. My intentions were increasingly going astray. This is bad. A leader like him? No thanks. Kevin muttered, making sure I could hear. His words hurt, but, embarrassingly, I couldn't muster a response. After that, he started avoiding me completely. He ignored me even when I greeted him and openly showed his hostility. Finally, the day came for our team's first presentation. I'll be in the meeting room on the 3rd floor, so please gather there. I called out and headed there ahead of everyone. I wondered what ideas everyone would bring. Excited, I set up the tea in the meeting room and waited. But even after 15 minutes, no one showed up. Thinking something might have happened, I went to check, only to find the four of them still seated at their desks, chatting away. At first, I thought they were just enjoying themselves until I realized it was a session of bad-mouthing me. Man, making us all gather in the meeting room, what a drag. The others chuckled. I felt a pang of quiet hurt. Benjamin's usually so dull and gloomy, and now he's suddenly all gung-ho. It's exhausting just watching him. Remarks like that started coming up, too. Is that really how they see me? The pain made me quietly withdraw. Since that day, I've been losing sleep, constantly thinking about how I can get along with everyone. One day after work, I decided to take the plunge. If you're free, would you like to grab a drink? I'd love to get to know everyone better, I suggested, proposing a social outing. Everyone looked at me. Maybe this could work. There's a new place nearby that serves great seafood. How about we go there, have some good food, and have an open chat? That's what we call drinking harassment. Kevin responded with a cold stare. I tried to explain that wasn't my intent, but he wouldn't listen. Oh, well, we don't have to drink, just enjoying a good meal together is fine too, right? Silence filled the air, no one agreed. Feeling defeated, I grabbed my bag. Well, I'll think of another idea sometime. I bowed my head and left the office, sighing at how poorly things were going. Then, on the train ride home, I stumbled upon something shocking. A message notification popped up on my free chat app, so I opened it casually. It was from one of the team members. Having a great time with the team, read the message, with a photo of everyone but me, looking happy together. A classic wrong recipient message. The place was, of all places, that seafood restaurant I had suggested. So, they really do dislike me. I slumped in disappointment. The shock was too much, so the next day, I stopped Kevin to try and talk. Predictably, he ignored me. So I turned to Kimberly, the member who had accidentally sent the message. Look, I know it's awkward to ask, but I can't figure out why everyone seems to hate me. If there's something I can fix, I'd really like to know. Could you tell me? Maybe she felt sorry seeing how desperate I was, so Kimberly spoke in a low voice. Her tone made it clear she was angry. I think Kevin has every right to be upset. It's because of things like that you lose everyone's trust. I had no idea what she meant, so I just stared blankly at her. Benjamin, you're seducing girls in their 20s, aren't you? I mean, you pretend to be all quiet. But there's talk that you're actually a pretty shady guy. What? Girls in their 20s? Me? No way. I'd never do something like that. It seemed like there was a huge misunderstanding. I desperately tried to explain that they had the wrong person, but no one believed me. After all, Kevin was confidently claiming he had evidence, so no one would even listen to my side. Evidence? What could he possibly have? At least now I understood why people looked at me like I was some kind of creep, but I had no idea how to clear this up. I was at a loss. After gathering some information, I discovered the truth. Kevin has a much younger sister. Her boyfriend has the same name as me and lives in the same area. In other words, Kevin mistakenly believes his sister is dating me. I sighed deeply. His sister is still in her 20s. If he thinks his sister's boyfriend is an unimpressive guy in his 40s like me, it's no wonder Kevin is upset. Apparently, he's strongly opposed to the relationship. But I have nothing to do with it, this is all just a misunderstanding. In fact, it's a nuisance. I need to explain this clearly. I set out to find Kevin and clear up the misunderstanding. Determined, I looked around the office for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Apparently, he was off stirring up more trouble. He had gone directly to Henry to make his case. I think Kimberly would be a better fit for team leader than Benjamin. She's popular with the team. And remember her coffee jelly creation that became such a hit? Compared to her, Benjamin has no track record and zero support. Henry looked troubled by what Kevin said. He replied that he'd think it over and urged Kevin to return to the office. Later, Henry called me in. "You have to get the team together. I promoted you because I thought you could handle it, don't let me down." Feeling defeated, I took the train home with a heavy heart. Then I remembered it was Tuesday. Lately, there was something I looked forward to. Every Tuesday and Friday, a beautiful, fair-skinned woman with a white cane boards the same train car as me. For some reason, when there's an open seat, she always ends up sitting beside me. I don't know why she chooses to sit next to me each time. But, really, any reason is fine. It simply makes me happy. She's like a breath of fresh air in my difficult daily life. I found myself wondering if I'd see her again today. Even though it's only 2 stops, just seeing her on those Tuesdays and Fridays lightens my mood a bit. The day of the second new product presentation arrived. I worried that no one would show up again, like last time. But this time, Henry would be there, so at least they wouldn't boycott. My idea for a new iced coffee with mint chocolate flavoring was ruthlessly criticized. "This is the worst thing I've ever tasted, and it's so off-putting, there's no way this will sell." The criticism was brutal. I chuckled bitterly at their harshness. Instead, Kevin's iced coffee paired with sweet bean jelly was praised as a masterpiece. The bitterness of the coffee and the cold, refreshing taste goes perfectly with the sweet red bean paste. "This will be a hit for sure," everyone echoed. Henry looked at me with a disappointed expression. Then Kimberly, the team's hitmaker, presented her new dessert idea. It was an almond jelly parfait. This one also received high praise. After the presentation, Henry muttered, "Maybe I need to reconsider a few things." I felt completely sidelined. I regretted not being able to meet Henry's expectations. Would Kimberly end up taking over as the team leader after all? Maybe it'd be better if I just stepped aside. On the train ride home, I was lost in thought when the woman with the white cane boarded. She sat down beside me, just like always. For some reason, I suddenly felt like talking to her, so I gathered my courage and spoke up. "You always sit next to me, don't you?" She flinched in surprise. "Can you actually see?" She tensed up, then turned her face toward me. Then, to my shock, she responded with something I hadn't anticipated. "What do you mean by that? Are you suggesting I'm just pretending to have a disability?" She was visibly getting angrier. "Oh no. That wasn't my intention at all." I quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way." "But don't you realize how offensive that question was?" "You're absolutely right. That was thoughtless of me." Our exchange had drawn attention in the train. I decided to get off at her usual stop to continue apologizing. "There are people watching here, so I'll get off at the next stop. Please, let me keep apologizing. I mean, if you don't mind, it's your usual stop. After all." She gave a silent nod. Once we were on the platform, I launched into a desperate explanation. "Really, it wasn't that I doubted you or anything. It's just that you always sit next to me, and I couldn't help but wonder why. But I see now that I made you uncomfortable, and I'm truly sorry." I gathered every possible word of apology and kept apologizing to her. Gradually, her demeanor began to soften. "I understand. I overreacted, too." I got a bit heated. Relieved, I exhaled deeply. "I'm Ashley." Since she introduced herself, I went ahead and gave my name as well. "I'm Benjamin." Her eyebrows raised slightly. "Oh. Is something wrong?" "No," Ashley smiled. "Your question, about why I always sit next to you, it's because of the scent." Surprised, I instinctively lifted my arm and took a sniff. I ended up making a loud sniffing sound, so she probably realized what I was doing. Ashley laughed softly. "It's not a bad smell. It's the coffee aroma. I love coffee, and every time I sit next to you, there's this wonderful scent. I sighed in relief. I work for a company that operates coffee chains, actually places like Roasting Village and Foster Beans. Oh, there's a Foster Beans near my place. I'm quite the regular there. The tension in the air eased. Ah, thank goodness. So that was the reason. My question was answered, and I was genuinely happy to talk to Ashley. I felt a bit giddy. But unfortunately, Kevin happened to witness this scene. Since he thought I was dating his sister, he flew into a rage. Benjamin! You scumbag! I told you to stay away from my sister. He suddenly lunged at me, yelling. His loud outburst startled Ashley beside me, causing her to stumble. In his agitation, Kevin didn't even notice her white cane. He ended up bumping into her. Ashley fell to her hands on the floor. Angry that she hadn't moved out of his way, Kevin started hurling insults at her. What the hell are you doing? I put a hand on Ashley's shoulder as she crouched on the floor. Are you okay? She sighed, relieved. Yes. She looked pale. She must have been terrified. I glared at Kevin. That was uncalled for. Only then did Kevin notice her white cane. Oh, so she's blind. Move out of the way. You should be taking the train when it's not crowded. I angrily rebuked him. How can you say something like that? What was that? We glared at each other. I had reached my limit. I didn't care if this got me removed from the team leader position or kicked off the team. This time, I was determined to say everything I'd kept bottled up. I was furious that Kevin had insulted Ashley, who had nothing to do with this. Apologize to her. She's holding a white cane, meaning she has a visual impairment. How could you bring yourself to hurt someone like that? Oh, shut up. You pretend to be a feminist when it suits you, but you're just a sleazeball hitting on women. Don't you dare mess with my sister. I've tried to tell you many times that it's a misunderstanding. Why won't you listen? Kevin looked shocked that I was responding so directly. You're acting totally different. Usually, you're such a wimp, never saying a thing. I didn't think you could talk back like this. You're just trying to impress her because she's pretty, right? He shot a smug look at Ashley. I firmly told him that this was an entirely separate matter. It was true, I had noticed her before. But now was not the time to be talking about that. You're mistaken, Kevin. I'm not the one dating your sister. I have proof. You said your birthday was on the weekend, didn't you? My sister also mentioned celebrating her boyfriend's birthday on that same day. I hesitated, lost for words. With the same name, living in the same area, and sharing the same birthday, I could see how it all seemed like an unbelievable coincidence. Even to me. Kevin scoffed. See, you can't even deny it. And now you're trying to go after this woman too? You just see my sister as an obstacle, don't you? Unforgivable. I don't know about the birthday, but I'm telling you, there's nothing between me and your sister, or between me and Ashley. I don't trust you. Break up with my sister. I suddenly realized that everyone on the platform was watching us, and someone even asked, shall we call the station staff? It was only natural that everyone was watching, given how loud the commotion had become. I felt my face flush. Just then, Ashley, who had been silent up until now, suddenly spoke up. That voice. I've heard it before. You're the brother of a friend of mine, aren't you? Kevin looked bewildered as she addressed him. My name is Ashley. My friend's name is Natalie. You're her brother, right? She had perfectly guessed Kevin's sister's name. His eyes widened in surprise. Yes, my sister's name is Natalie. But? Kevin looked skeptical, tilting his head. Prove that you're actually her friend. Ashley gave a slight smile. Natalie talks like this, doesn't she? She began mimicking her. I couldn't tell, but it must have been a spot-on impression. Kevin looked astonished. She has this slightly babyish, nasal way of talking. It's a unique voice, hard to mimic. But you really got it right. I remember because I hear it all the time. Ashley looked a bit proud of herself. Then she added, I even have a photo showing her phone. It was a picture of her and Kevin's sister, standing side by side. That's Natalie. I see. But what kind of friend are you to her? All her friends are usually young and flashy. Kevin, arms crossed, asked her a question. Ashley was clearly older than his sister. In fact, she looked about the same age as Kevin himself. I met Natalie at an English conversation class. Although I can't see, I have an active personality and love trying new things. That's right. My sister loves traveling abroad, so she takes English classes. Kevin murmured. Now he understood that Ashley was indeed a friend of his sister's. But he was still puzzled as to how Ashley had recognized his voice. Ashley, where did you hear my voice? And how do you remember it? Do you really want to know? You're making this sound like an interrogation. Ashley grew exasperated with Kevin's persistence. Still, she kindly explained. Kevin's sister knows that Ashley has an exceptional sense of hearing, so when they communicate, she often uses various audio recordings. For example, she plays her own videos. In one from a beach trip, Ashley can hear the sound of waves, the ocean breeze, people's voices, and even the voices of her family members. Ashley gets to listen to these sounds firsthand. And then Kevin's sister adds explanations to help her understand. Natalie is very kind. She introduces me to so many new things. Apparently, some of those videos included her brother Kevin's voice. At this point, Kevin finally apologized to Ashley. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were my sister's friend. That was rude of me. But I'm not apologizing to Benjamin. Kevin remained firm. This guy's been leading my sister on. That's absolutely not true. I insisted firmly. Kevin turned to Ashley. Ashley, have you ever heard anything about Natalie's boyfriend? Isn't it this guy? He asked, pointing at me. This guy's way too old to be messing around with a girl in her 20s. There's something really off about him. And he's my senior at work, a guy with no ambition and nothing respectable about him. Of course, as her brother, I'd be completely against it. Kevin declared. Ashley chuckled softly. What's so funny? He's not Natalie's boyfriend. I felt an immense wave of relief, unable to keep a smile from my face. But Kevin's frustration only grew. What? How would you know that? The scent is different. The scent again. I was amazed by Ashley's incredible sense of smell. Wait, Ashley, have you actually met Natalie's boyfriend? Kevin asked, leaning in with interest. No, I haven't met him, she explained. But I know because I've met Natalie after their dates, and she had a lovely scent on her. My heart skipped a beat. A lovely scent? What could that mean? It was unmistakably the smell of shampoo or hair products. I'm sure her boyfriend is a hairstylist. But right now, both Benjamin and Kevin smell like coffee. Kevin was taken aback. Amazing. I find the smell of coffee comforting, so that's why I always sit next to Benjamin. He's been wondering why. But I knew from the start that he worked at a coffee chain. So I can say with confidence that this is a case of mistaken identity. Encouraged by Ashley's reliable testimony, I felt a surge of courage. Having witnessed Ashley's incredible abilities, Kevin was momentarily speechless. Plus, Natalie often confides in me about her struggles with you, Ashley continued. She's been worried, saying that recently, you two have been fighting a lot. She's concerned because you two were once so close. She wonders if it's her fault for causing you trouble. What? Natalie said that? Kevin and I both felt a pang of emotion at her words. Hey, Ashley. Sorry for the wait. To our surprise, it was none other than Kevin's sister, Natalie, who appeared. Huh? What are you doing here, big brother? Well, what? What's going on? Ashley smiled. It turned out she had planned to meet Kevin's sister today. What a coincidence. Kevin was flustered and at a loss for words. Meanwhile, his sister casually dropped a surprising revelation. Yeah, dating an older guy just didn't work for me. We broke up. What? With Benjamin here? Kevin pointed at me. This time, it was Natalie's turn to look surprised. Huh? Who's this? I've never seen him before. See? Right, Natalie? We're complete strangers, aren't we? Yeah, pretty much. She replied casually. Kevin turned beet red and bowed deeply to me. I'm so sorry. Hearing the whole story, Natalie also apologized for the trouble her brother's misunderstanding had caused me. What were you even thinking, big brother? My bad. My ex's name is Benjamin, yes, but that's just the name he uses for work. His real name is different. It's a trend among star hairstylists to use alternate names. I glanced at Ashley. Ashley's face lit up as she spoke. So, Natalie's ex really was a hairstylist. Sorry, Ashley, I hadn't mentioned it. But it doesn't matter now, we broke up. Anyway, big brother. Kevin, seeing the stern look on his sister's face, began to look uneasy. Taking out your frustrations on others because of me? That's the worst. I'm disappointed in you. But, birthdays and everything, it was such a rare coincidence. I really thought it was Benjamin. So persistent. I couldn't have celebrated with him on his actual birthday. He has weekdays off, remember? Oh, right. When it came to his sister, Kevin seemed to lose all common sense. I was just worried. Don't talk to me anymore. Kevin, elbowed aside by his sister, looked utterly dejected. Ashley and I watched, unable to hold back our laughter. Kevin looked completely defeated after being cut off by his sister. Then, a shocking revelation surfaced within the new product development team. The iced coffee with sweet bean jelly that Kevin had presented turned out to be a copy of a competitor's product. Henry was furious and removed Kevin from the team. Rumor had it he'd be transferred to a subsidiary in the next round of reassignments. Kevin lost his confidence and became a completely different, much gloomier person. Once the center of attention, he now spent his time in a corner of the office, with copier maintenance as his only real task. As for my new creation, the mint chocolate flavored iced coffee. Since that incident, Ashley and I had grown closer, and she helped me come up with an improved version. We added a scoop of mint chocolate ice cream to the iced coffee. Through trial and error, adjusting the blend and roast of the coffee beans, we arrived at a fresh new taste. With Ashley's encouragement, I finally worked up the courage to present it. Wow! This is actually really good. Even Kimberly, the team's hitmaker, gave it her stamp of approval, and Henry complimented me with a nod, saying, "Well done." The new drink was soon approved to be launched as a product at Foster Beans. When I shared the news with Ashley, she was thrilled for me. Though it had been a bumpy road, the misunderstandings with my team were finally cleared up, and we were working together in a positive atmosphere. And now, my goal is to create a coffee that someday Ashley herself might call her favorite.